All right. Good afternoon and good morning, everybody. Welcome back. Success Spotlight. Been on a little bit of a hiatus, so I apologize about that. We had a little bit of a scheduling snafu last month, and then last week, Jeremy Olson and the RPOA team announced their new RPOA AI product. So hopefully you got a chance to check that out. I know that Kelly from our team had sent that out. Really cool feature. We got a chance to take a look at the webinar too as well. So highly encourage you reaching out to Jeremy and again the role play at the Olson Agency team, so you can check that out. But today we have a super exciting guest. It's the first time in Success Spotlight history. I think we've done this probably 26, 27 times now. And it is, or no, probably more than, or no, that's about right, 26, 27 times. And it's the first time we've had a repeat guest. And, of course, we're going to have Keith come for a second time. A lot's been happening for Keith, so excited to catch up with him and share some recruiting strategies that are updated from the last time that Keith was with us, because as we know and as you all experience, the recruiting atmosphere is always changing, right? So we'll talk about some of the common trends that are coming up as a part of that, as well as some of the regular stuff that we always cover too as well. But as I mentioned, today's guest is going to be Keith Collins. Currently serves in two capacities with Farmers Insurance. One as the district manager in the Atlantic District, which covers real estates from Maine all the way through Virginia. And then in addition to that, serves as the head of agency channel recruiting consultant, where Keith and I were just talking a little bit. I've hired 130 people in the last month. So again, if you're looking for a guy that knows how to hire people, you just hired 130 people in the last month, which, Keith, I don't know if I was supposed to share, but hopefully that gives some good context towards what we're going to talk about today. So, Keith, it's always good sharing the stage with you, sir. Always good catching up with you. And again, I don't know if I know a busier guy than you, so I appreciate you taking time to join us today.
Likewise, man. I didn't know I'm like the first repeat. Is this like the 5-time thing on SNL? Like you get like a little plaque?
Yeah, I can do that. We'll get you to 5 over the years. I'm sure we'll both be around for a long time. So yeah, once we get to 5, I'll get you a little, maybe a nice special shirt or something that you can wear. Maybe right. Craig Bender, who's here with us today, will help with the design too.
Oh, from Insure You Too?
Yeah, oh yeah, Insure You Too. I'm sure he'll start mocking up some designs as we speak, but we'll see. But anyways, Keith, again, you've been pretty busy in the recruiting world. So if you want to share a little bit about kind of what you're doing now since the last time that you joined Success Spotlight, I think giving an update to the people would be a good place to start.
Yeah, since the last time I've been on here, I left Minnesota, a place I got to call home for 5 years, incredibly awesome people, and moved back home to where I'm originally from in New York. Got to take over what I'm calling the Atlantic District. So again, Maine down to Virginia, a group of about 100 agents. They're awesome people. And really what I'm looking to do and help them is get them up and going with proper staffing techniques. Also, like, because we talk about hiring all the time, also the accountability on the back end, right? I don't think that's talked about enough, the profit and the loss, having those good conversations, because there's sometimes ran into one agent that hired somebody, paid him $5,000 plus commission. I'm like, oh wow, you're going to be really easy to hire for, but where's the ROI, right? What's it look like, premium production and this and that? Sure enough, he's like, no, I'm bleeding money there. So it's having that whole conversation, especially on the district side. On the national side, it's really cool because Farmers is trying to grow faster and faster, and it's really cool because you see all the actions in place. It's one thing to say and put a press release out there. We're backing it up. We're trying to appoint these agencies. We're trying to grow aggressively. So it's exciting to me getting to work with the executive team, getting to see all the actions. These guys never sleep, and they're always acting in the best capacity for agents. I would say, if anything, if an agent's looking at it today, I tell them any place that's recruiting, know that they're trying to grow, and that's in your best interest. If you're ever talking about layoffs or things of that nature, like I'll throw Amazon out there, right? If we were to say Amazon's laying off, you wouldn't think they're in growth mode. But yeah, no, I could ramble all day, but yeah, we're growing aggressively, and I'm glad to be part of it.
Yeah, well, they got the right man for the job, because you surely know how to do your recruiting, right? Which is, well, it's terrific. So again, as I told you before, and I'll tell you now, congratulations on everything. It seems to be going really well, and it's it's really fun to watch and listen along as things continue to progress. So again, for all of you listening to, if you haven't seen the first episode with Keith, go check that out on our YouTube, landing page for Success Spotlight. I will link it in the chat in a little bit. And of course, if you ever have any questions, feel free to use the question and answer section, and we'll make sure that we get you some answers. But Keith, with this being sort of the second time, or with this being the second time that you've been on Success Spotlight, we discussed having a little bit of a different conversation. And I think that it's fair to say that in today's day and age, the reality is really starting to settle in for a lot of business owners that it's going to cost more upfront to be able to recruit good qualified talent. And I think coming out of COVID, there was a large conversation around, well, you have to pay more because you're competing with remote now, right? And to me, that's a different conversation than what I'm sort of asking you now. And what I'm getting at is the fact that sponsoring your job ad and advertising and investing into recruiting is more than it is today than it was a couple of years ago. So does that feel the same, and does that feel true for you?
Yeah, it's definitely interesting with AI and all the automations in the background too, because I think too many people try to take the human element out of it completely. And you can automate it, and there's automations you should do, right? But I think in terms of especially matching, if you're hiring today, I would say take everybody, especially if you're in the insurance pipeline, make sure that you're giving everybody a chance. Because I mean, I myself, I was in nursing school before I got into it. Not saying that you want me as an employee. I'd probably not be that great. But there's so many people out there. I use butcher, concrete labor, like I harp on a Domino's delivery driver. There's any number of people that come from all walks of life that on any grading scale, their keywords aren't going to match up with sales and insurance and this and that. So I'd say have a system that filters out based on effort, not based on what the experience is, what their background is. Have a system designed to capture that person and train them up, not root them out and just find your already polished, because you're going to end up paying more, and you're going to end up paying more and deleting your funnel at the same time.
To kind of pay on both sides of it, right? A little bit of a leaky bucket, but then in addition to that too, just kind of eliminating your options without even really knowing it. So that's a really interesting point. I know that the evolution of automation and AI into hiring has become very popular, right? It really is the buzzword in today's recruiting landscape, I suppose, right? To where it's, well, we use AI to do this and we use AI to do that. And of course, IdealTraits facilitates a lot of those tools as well. But our goal is to make your life easier, not to necessarily disqualify any candidates, right?
Mm-hmm.
So again, use those tools to your advantage, but be careful, right? Still do your due diligence, and as Keith had recommended, don't remove the human element to it, because what Keith's looking for and what I'm looking for versus what you're looking for are three probably completely different things. So Keith, I think we could talk a little bit about into that subject. What are the things that you're generally looking for out of someone? You mentioned, use things that track effort, right? So are there anything specific that you're looking for in a resume that are, red flags or green flags? Or is it generally just, hey, let's kind of look at it as a blank canvas and form my own conclusion by talking to them?
No, there definitely is still red flags and green flags. I would say if somebody has 5 different jobs and not all 5 at the same time, but they're month to month to month to month, that's a red flag, right? Don't use it as a blindfold. The next piece, like on a green flag, okay, this person went from clerk to manager to maybe senior manager. That's a green flag because you're seeing career progression. Obviously, either the store or somebody in their company saw something in them to say, hey, this person is sticking with it. And I'm a little bit old school too. I'm not a huge fan of college, but I am a fan of seeing degrees sometimes, especially with some candidates, because it also shows, hey, I'm investing in my success and I'm willing to see something through, right? So there's a little bit of that when you go through that as well.
Yeah. I know that I've spoke to a lot of people that look for college athletics and things of that nature too, right? To where, they're like, oh, if I see someone that played college athletics, it shows discipline and time management and this and that, and of course that doesn't necessarily have to be specific towards athletics. It can be towards, Greek life, or it can be towards, I guess, what am I, like music, right? Like a band. I don't know what the common term for that would be, right? Or something of that can show a little bit of additional extracurricular activity that then solicits, good time management skills and, maybe even a respect for leadership to a certain extent, right?
Absolutely.
Cool. I was on the same sort of topic of just candidates in general. I was talking with like a colleague of mine a couple of weeks ago, and it was kind of funny because he said recruiting's kind of unique because today it feels like you either use Indeed or you use someone who posts through Indeed. So, for you folks, obviously, for all of you on this call, most of you using IdealTraits today fall into the category of using someone who posts through Indeed, amongst other job boards too, as well, that serves as an advantage to you. But with that being the case, you hear a lot of business owners describe Indeed as sort of the necessary component, right? To where, yeah, it's the largest provider of qualified people, but it's also the largest provider of unqualified people. So for someone like yourself, Keith, who over the last 30 days hired more than 100 people, how are you mastering Indeed, let's say?
Yeah. So plug for you guys, IdealTraits, right? So IdealTraits is ATS platform, much easier to post. You get the personality profile. Probably everybody on this webinar knows, so I won't bleed that dry. But I will say what most people miss in tandem is using Indeed in tandem with IdealTraits. So using something like a smart sourcing to pick better candidates to invite to your job, right? Looking at the different candidates available out there, what they're applying to. Also seeing some of the job titles, right? If you go on Indeed in your area, I would challenge you, if you have a job posting out there, type in sales or insurance. You're going to get all these different job titles, and a lot of them are speaking a different language than you and I speak, right? So most insurance people think in terms of salary. We don't think in terms of hourly. Most people at an entry level are going to think hourly. The next piece, as you're looking at it, we say agent, right? I hear that word all the time in insurance. People think anything from somebody getting licensed as an agent, to a customer service rep being an agent, to the agency owner being an agent. So it's using lingo that people can really get behind, because really most of the time they look at that job title, they look at the salary, and they've decided, they have a version in their mind of what it is already. So you have to give yourself the best fighting chance right from the start, just based on that.
That's really smart. And then, the smart sourcing is huge. But then, just for anybody, Keith, that's dipping their toe into the Indeed realm or to the Indeed sponsorship process, do you have like a recommended, like, hey, dip your or get your feet wet with this type of budget? What would you recommend there, or would you just say, hey, reach out to, I guess in this case, the IdealTraits support team for guidance?
I'll always do that. But what I will say on the sponsorship, you don't need to go crazy, right? So I know that if you go to Indeed directly, they're going to ask probably for $2,000 or $70 a day, or stuff that a normal agency usually can't afford as they're getting up and going, or like you're trying to get up and you're trying to get to 2 or 3 or 4 staff members, building a team, right? Well, that poses a problem, because if half your lead budget is spent on recruitment, now you don't have any money to pay for leads. I would say budget around anywhere from 250 to 500 for recruitment a month. And what I would tell anybody is keep that consistent too. Recruiting is an all the time thing. It solves all the problems within an agency, line of business to line of business. The other piece of this too is it comes in waves, right? Turnover and hiring. You're going to find 2 great ones at the same time. The same time, you're going to find 2 bad ones at the same time. And you can't pick them. That's kind of going back to my soapbox on, hey, you got to have a system that weeds them out and really decides who's great. So that's where, again, making it a machine, so you're able to put 2 or 3 people in there. One really shows you how great they are. The other 2, maybe this isn't for them.
And I think there's some really good stuff in there, right? So, folks, hopefully you're taking notes and are ready to ask some questions too if you have them. Because again, like we talked about, today's day and age of recruiting is you're either using Indeed or you're using somebody who posts to Indeed. So understanding how to use that type of job board to your advantage is going to be a massive difference maker for you to then get the results that you desire, right? In order for you to be able to use the additional tools that IdealTraits has to offer, you first have to be able to maximize getting enough candidates to make those tools beneficial. Because if you just have, let's say, 4 or 5 candidates to pick from, then you're potentially running the risk of just picking the best of the worst, right? So, Keith, last time I checked, I don't know if this sounds accurate to you, applicant to hire ratio in insurance is like hovering between 1% and 2%.
Yeah, I always use the example of 100 applicants, 50 set interviews with, 25 actually show up to interviews, 6 start studying because they think this is a good idea to do. And then out of that 6, 1 gets licensed.
Yeah. And those are tough numbers, but very realistic ones, right? And I'm sure everyone can agree with that. But again, for those of you listening, right, if you need help with your job ads, getting more candidates, reach out to the IdealTraits team. We are here to help you, whether it's tweaking job ad or sponsoring your job ad and sort of getting your feet wet with that. Reach out to us because that's what we are here to help you with. That is a part of your subscription. You don't have to pay additional for that. That is why you use IdealTraits, for us to serve as sort of an extension to your team. But Keith, there you really brought up a good point, which is, 100 candidates, 50 get scheduled for an interview, and then 50% of those people show up to the interview. So an epidemic in today's recruiting environment is no shows on interviews. I think every business owner, if you were to survey 100 of them, an overwhelming majority of them are facing this as a massive problem. They're scheduling an interview and people just aren't showing up. So as you work candidates through the process, right, they're applying, they're completing the IdealTraits assessment, and feel free to share any adage on that you would like. But then how are you communicating with them through the process to keep them engaged?
Yeah, so you and I were talking about this before we jumped on here, and I'm a big proponent of calling them the day before, right? Personally, as well as when you set up the interview. I'm not a big fan of the calendar automation. I do think it has its place, absolutely, but I'm a big fan of manually scheduling the interview. The reason why is that I believe people take it more seriously, where, hey, this is the time we have for you. We look forward to meeting you at this time. I can only imagine if I could, and I'm sure there's dentists that do this, but if you could schedule your dentist right through an automated calendar system, it'd be a little different than if I canceled at the last minute. Most of them charge you, right? If you cancel 30 minutes before, that doesn't happen because you're interviewing them. They're not an employee. You can't charge them $30, $50 for your time. So that's where the power has to be in the power dynamic has to be in your hands. And I would say schedule it, set a reminder the day before. And then also a lot of this interview process is about transfer of enthusiasm and confidence. Like that enthusiasm part that, hey, you remembered me, you remembered to call me the day before. You must actually be excited about my interview. We get a much better show up rate than if we just put a link out there, say book your own time, and there's nothing wrong with it. It can still work, and I know people that have had a lot of success with it. But just personally, that's been my experience.
All right. So are you calling, texting, emailing?
CTE. So call, text, email.
Oh boy. Will Smith. That's a good movie. Have you seen that?
It's a great movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's how I remember it too. So like it did when I was an agent, did the same thing with leads, right? Call, text, email, because everybody has their own communication language too. That's something important. Like if I'm working all day, I barely get to answer phone calls. When I do, I kind of get excited. But otherwise, I'm doing this all day, like nonstop. Emails, I don't know if I'll check them ever. I won't ever admit to that on camera, but
All right. And just over the years of getting to know you, Keith, I know that you are very data driven, which I look forward to. I want to talk a little bit about that too before we wrap up. But then in addition to that too, that comes with data driven is being process, right? So what is your standard operating procedure for CTE, right? Calling, texting, and emailing these candidates. What is your, like, do you have a set amount of time you reach out through each vessel before you say this candidate's just not engaged anymore?
Yeah, 3 times. 3 times absolutely is my max on each. So 9 times total if you're counting 3 and 3 and 3. But after that point, if that person's not communicating, there's something not there. They applied for the job. I always use the Jocko Willink good, like good. If they're not replying, they probably didn't want the job bad enough. This is going to be hard work. If you can't get back to me on one of these methods of communication after 9 times, I don't know that this is the right field for you.
And it's tough too, because I think for a lot of businesses, again, it's hard to get candidates these days with how competitive it is. Like if we just what it is difficult to get candidates, and oftentimes you have to pay to get more candidates, which is a tough reality. Because if we look back, even 3 years ago, like it wasn't this competitive, it wasn't this hard to get candidates. You could post an organic job ad, not put funding behind it, and still get enough to maybe suffice, right? But nowadays, it's almost as if you want to really continue a healthy recruiting practice, you have to invest into it through supporting your job ads financially, right? Which is, again, tough because a lot of folks are now seeing less organic applications, which then leads to them only, let's say, having 10 to 15 maybe on a low end, I guess. And then they see maybe one or two really good candidates that come through from that. And then those 1 to 2 really good candidates aren't returning their calls because they just don't have enough options to choose from, right? Which is, I think, probably is representative of what's the frustration point today, is that when a good candidate does come through, you kind of put all of your eggs in that basket or in those couple of baskets, and then for some reason it doesn't end up working out, right?
Well, and there's so much mismatched language on there too, right? So let's say you're posting a job to be an insurance agent at your agency. So many people have different concepts of what that is, kind of like we talked about. I'm a big fan of putting a video together. So just saying, hey, here's my agency, here's what we do. Because not only do they get to connect with a face and a person at that point, but you can also list the job duties. The next piece too is if you're doing a video and you put it in your job ad, you can also put it on social media, right? With the job link to apply to your ad. So there's so many different ways you can do it that will really help you spell it out more. And kind of going back to what you were saying, Nolan, like you got to have options and not obligations. Like I see too many people, they post one job or two and they have like 6 applicants. And then they're like hoping that the one good one out of that batch will like call them back. And I'm like, no, you can't live like this. I mean, it you wouldn't run an agency like this on leads. Don't run application process like that.
So funny because there's so many similarities between those two things, like prospecting and recruiting, right? But for some reason, it's just we fail oftentimes to make that connection, right? So we're like, I wouldn't do this as a part of my marketing and prospecting. So why would I put this myself in this position when it comes to recruiting? And I mean, shoot, like you can prospect if you're let's say you have a team of 3, you can prospect, 14 hours a day. But at the end of the day, the team that has 6 people is going to be more productive probably in 8 to 10 hours, right? So why not invest that extra money and that extra time into recruiting just to elevate the numbers that are being put out, right? And I'm sure that resonates a lot with you.
Oh, definitely. I was talking to the best agent in Pennsylvania yesterday,
Yeah.
and he's about 125 and he wants to get to 250.
Yeah.
And it all came down to recruiting. There was a little bit of marketing tweaks in there, right? But seeing like the light bulb go off, okay, I leverage this and that, and it all came down to putting people in the right spots, having the accountability measures, but more people usually forces that too. That is what I usually look, because if you have more people in the agency, you're gonna hold tighter because you're spending more money, and those controls, as long as you're doing the right things to make sure you're getting an ROI, that's huge.
Excellent. All right. Very cool. Before we get to the data, I want to talk really quickly about interviews, because in today's day and age, I feel specifically maybe in insurance that not enough people are selling the opportunity, and not necessarily like selling it or convincing it, right? But they're not talking to the opportunity in in the way that it helps people truly see what is available to them, right? Now, again, this is not necessarily, I'm not making a blanket statement here. I know that there are, people that are and people that aren't, but oftentimes when it comes down to it, you have to be able to win people over when it comes to that interview, right? They see your office, they meet your other staff members, you hear you talk about their career projection, right? And I think that this is one of the things probably that's very underrated about you, Keith. I've never sat in an interview with you, but I know that you have to be good at it with the amount of hiring that you do. So what are some of the things that you're talking about just as an opportunity in insurance in general? I know you represent farmers, so if you want, you can, of course, specify that too. But hopefully you get where my question's coming from.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different things in an interview, and I don't take it for granted. So one of the best things for me that ever happened was when I got to be a district manager in Minnesota. My first year, there was a couple agents that I gave candidates to, and I'm like, oh, cool, and they're all excited to hire them, and they're like, well, you do the first interview with me, and I'm like, what are you talking about? And they had never interviewed a candidate, right? So they're like, do I just give them the job? And I'm like, no, we don't do that. Let's ask them questions about, because you call it like it is when you're trying to find a sales rep, you're just like, here, go study, figure it out. You got to line up the career progression, right? You got to show them here is where I can help you get to. So if we're talking about the protege program, showing them how to get to their own agency. If you want to build them into a sales manager within your agency, maybe it's customer service, but showing them like, here's how you grow with our agency, build a spot for them, build them into the vision that you have for the agency, because that's so powerful. And if they can grow with you, they'll usually stay with you. Or vice versa, if you're launching pad, you're going to start becoming a magnet for opportunity. I know I've been lucky enough to have a lot of good talent around me because I've tried to help them get to district manager positions, try to get to agency positions, and that's helped me a ton because, yeah, did I have that person forever? No, but when I've had them for a few years around me, like, I my name gets the credit, but it's a Jess Loman, it's a Dakota Cole, Andrew Merle, Christina, like all those guys, they're doing awesome things now,
They are.
and I was the beneficiary of it.
Yeah. And Jessica Lumen too. I think it was her birthday this a couple days ago, right?
Yeah,
Happy birthday to her.
yeah,
But yeah, anyway, sorry about the off topic comment.
you're all good.
Just want to say happy birthday, Jessica. But yeah, I mean, it makes total sense, right? Because and again, I feel as if it's a very underrated and underappreciated part of the process is being able to meet with a candidate and to be able to have them truly see and latch on to where they can be 5 years from now. And let's face it, right? Like in the insurance industry, it's a common thing about how the agency or the industry itself is aging out, right? So there is a strong emphasis on recruiting younger talent, if you will. One of the most important things, if you look at the statistics to that younger talent, is career progression, right? And I think that if there's any industry out there, insurance is on one of the is at the is at the top of the list, if not the number one thing, where there is the most opportunity for the younger generation to really come in and absolutely make a killing and move up quick, right? So is that obviously a common talking point for you too as you go through interviews as well?
Absolutely. Well, and I think there's a lot of agents that have an aversion to getting somebody licensed, getting them up and going where they have no sales experience. I personally love it. Like I have met so many young people that end up owning the agencies and they are so much better. Like I'll just make a very general statement and say there a lot of them that are have that drive at that age. They're very coachable. They'll follow playbooks. They analyze things more, so they'll want to dive into the weeds. And it's a lot more fun doing that versus somebody that maybe this is a 5 year plan and then they're selling it. They don't have a passion, right? I work with Anchor a lot, head east and west of farmers, and he says you got to find bakers that want to bake, right? The bakers that love baking. And it's so true. You got to be invested in the agency, in inside it, playing around, because I think many times too it's sold as an investment. It be a great investment, but at the same time you got to be able to pull the levers, know the little nuances, because things are constantly changing too. Like 5 years ago, AI wasn't a thing with a lot of stuff. Now you got to be up to speed because AI is playing a role in SEO. It's playing a role in recruiting. It's playing a role in a lot of different things. And if you're not versed on that, heck, even from 5 years ago, you could have bought an agency 5 years ago and not have a clue on a lot of things today.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean SEO. They're saying that that's becoming something of the past too, as that continues on, right?
Mm-hmm.
As it sort of evolves. But all right, really good stuff. I had mentioned wanting to talk about the data. So I've been lucky enough to have conversations with you about at least a snippet of the data that you collect, right? But again, I think something that makes you a master at your craft, Keith, is your ability to sink into the numbers and understand whether what you're doing is working or not. And the reason I want to bring this up is because, as we know, and I don't need to beat a dead horse here, what we do know is that a lot of folks, just business owners in general, they need to hire somebody, and they start their hiring process when that need arrives, and they don't necessarily prepare for that, right? Whereas for someone like yourself, what you're doing is preparing for the inevitable, which is just hiring more people and using that data to, of course, make more informed decisions. So if you could just give us, I guess, a look under the hood of some of the things that you're tracking and you're looking at to know whether your time, your money, your effort is being used wisely.
Yeah. On the money side, I would say everybody on this call, if you don't know your cost per application, know it immediately. Like figure it out, know it, and know the little nuances too. So when I say little nuances, so like I see Brady Boyd's name on this call out in Litchfield, Minnesota. If you guys know Litchfield, Minnesota, I'd be impressed. You're probably living in Minnesota. Very small town, not a huge population. If you post a job there, you're probably gonna have a higher cost per applicant than if you did it in Minneapolis, where there's a lot, right? So that's where I look at it, and you got to know, okay, I'm willing to pay maybe less than $6 per application in a metro area. If it's rural, you might have to budget a little bit more or get more savvy, like we are talking about, use it in combination with smart sourcing. Maybe you sponsor it, maybe you do a few locations to branch out because you have to get a wider net, but people in rural towns are willing to drive more. Usually the job location is set to 20 miles. Well, the nearest town might be 25 miles outside, right? Uh, there's little things like that that go in too. So mapping it out as well. So if you're recruiting, I see a few district managers on this call, definitely mapping out so your ads aren't cannibalizing each other. That is a huge deal too, because you can spend money on top of money. Um, that doesn't help anybody, especially with your agents too, right? If you're a district manager and you're trying to recruit in tandem with your agents, don't recruit on top of them, because if you're spending money in the same place, you probably won't get the same candidates, but you'll spend money in the area and drive up cost per app for both of you. The
Excellent.
next thing, oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No, please.
So yeah, next thing I would say is know your application, know your people in licensing, and then the biggest one I would track, and this is both agency and district, is people that have studied in the last 10 days. If you can tell me that stat for your agency, I can tell you how many people you'll have appointed to your agency in the next 30 days. Because that's usually a good forecast. If usually 1 in 6, if you have, let's say, at a district level, let's say you have 60 people studying, probably means 10 are going to get appointed next month. So for an agency, you really at least want to get 6 people studying, knowing that 1 or 2 might fail, 2 more might get bored, 1 just fled the country and said, I'm done studying for insurance, and then the other one passed, right? I say all that because that's so important for forecasting, to finally get to your appointed individual that you worked so hard for.
And that's interesting. I know that we've had a lot of these success spotlights, and there has been a lot of conversation about hiring in multiples, but there hasn't been a lot of conversation around training in multiples and
Mhm.
preparing for that, right? Because again, a fixation with finding people who are already licensed, but then in addition to that too, we just don't think about that as a part of the process, right? Like you need to hire 2 or 3 people and being okay with maybe 1 or 2 of them working out. However, I think you bring a new perspective, Keith, to where it's like have 6 to 7 people going through the licensing process, and again, be okay with maybe 1, 2, or 3 of them coming out of that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, Josh Arnold, it was a really good litmus test for me because he wanted to have 50 people appointed in a year. And I was like, that's so cool. And I'm like, working the math backwards to get there, right? That means you have to have 300 people studying in the last 10 days to make that happen throughout some course of the year. So it was so interesting because if you work the math backwards, this is very, very formulaic once you get things down. And then just knowing, okay, this town performs usually at this rate. A lot of that data too is available on Indeed. So if you ever jump into the hiring and insights reports too, something as simple as job titles, little tweak like that can make a world of difference, from insurance sales representative to, let's say, agent apprentice. One might perform way, way better because the other one's in like every template for every job that they have out there. I, I recommend definitely looking at some of those details.
And playing around is key. We have a couple of questions here. Craig says, every time I open any social media platform, the first post is always Keith. How does he handle so much?
Oh boy. Yes. And
Yeah.
yeah, no, I have a social media team that makes me look good. That's well, or at least presentable for social media. But yeah, they're awesome. I appreciate you, Greg.
Yeah. And then this is more of a testament of experience, it seems, but it says, using ideal traits, we generated 187 total applicants with 100% organic traffic and no sponsorship spend. Nice. That's good. Indeed drove 124 applicants, talent.com produced 47, and ZipRecruiter generated 15, all fully tracked and verified. So yeah, it looks like you're taking a look at the statistics and seeing how those things perform. So some of you might have experience very similar to that, where you're able to generate that much organic traffic, maybe hiring a remote position or a more desirable role, excuse me. But for more of those in-office salesperson type of positions, more often than not, in today's recruiting atmosphere, you're probably going to want to look to sponsors. So, Keith, that goes into our next
Mhm.
question here from Mr. William Tuttle. He asks, how much would you recommend investing into sponsoring your job?
So each job, I know the minimum budget's at least $50 per
Yeah.
job,
Yeah.
right? I would tell most agencies to do probably 250 per 2 weeks. So meaning 500 a month. Now, given the different, if you're in a rural location, you might spread it out and post for, hey, here's a job in Owatonna, here's one in Mankato. Spread it out so you have a little bit larger reach in that area. Abiding by the Indeed guidelines, I'll put that disclaimer there. But that being said, yeah, budgeting 500. I'm a big fan. If you can budget more for your recruiting, like I'm a big believer. Every agency should probably set aside 1,000. But I also know, like, haven't been an agent, budgets are tight, and you're trying to make it work on the end. So start small at least. If it's your first time sponsoring ads and things of that nature, set 250 every 2 weeks aside. It's going to give you a good workflow. You'll get in the rhythm of it and grow it from there, and as your team grows.
Yeah. And again, as you continue to hire people, you'll get that return on investment. Like that money will come back full circle, and then some, and then a lot more, right? Because if there's anything that you can invest into today, and you could hear Keith say it himself too as well, there's nothing that could be better for you to invest to than it would be into your recruiting process.
Well, and I'll add this caveat, and it might not work out with whoever you hire. You let them go, and guess what you need to do again? You need to recruit. So finding the next person and being able to back up on the horse, recruit again, and not be sour about it and think hiring doesn't work, right? Going through this process again and again and expecting it to be a continual system.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Keith, I mean, this has been a very powerful session, right? We've talked about really the things that are impacting recruiting today. We've talked about, Indeed and how to get the most out of that, getting candidates to show up to more interviews and sort of just understanding the reality of sometimes they're just not going to show up no matter what you do, but how to better communicate with them in a good standard operating procedure. Of course, 3 calls, 3 texts, 3 emails. And then in addition to that, using the data to your advantage to understand where the gaps in your hiring process are and where we need to be. So it looks like 2 quick questions came in here, I guess, before I get to my last question from you. Whitney Carpenter says, in our district, we say ABC, always be recruiting. Yeah.
Love
okay.
that.
That's a new
Love
one.
that.
That one, that's good. Whitney, thank you for throwing that to us. Appreciate it. And Mariah Hall says, how do you keep a consistent flow of number of applicants and views for job postings? And I think that the simple answer to that is sponsorship. But Keith, I'll let you sort of expand if there's anything else.
Yeah, sponsor is definitely the number one. I'd say job title is important too, because again, I love the creativity. I've coached a lot of agents, and some really want to get creative with it. So you can use ChatGPT, Claude, any number of things. Say, hey, find me a really good job title that conveys what I'm trying to do. And so let's say it's, instead of insurance agent, you say, hey, client success manager, or something to that effect. Something that will be in the keywords of what they're looking for. And I will say you'll want to refresh it about every 2 weeks, because after 2 weeks it becomes stale. The volume goes really low, and the sponsorships usually front ended. It usually spends most in that first week, which actually works to your advantage. That second week, if you're doing it right, you should have a bunch of interviews, a little less time to source, and over time, just getting in that, okay, I got to schedule more interviews, refresh the ad, and so on and so forth. Does that make sense?
I think it makes total sense. And again, depending on the type of recruiting you're looking to do, you could probably, mess with that a little bit, right? Because it might not be recruiting as much as Keith's looking to recruit, right? So maybe that steady drip on a consistent basis throughout the month is sufficient enough for you, right? But again, recruiting, investing into it. IdealTraits is a great platform, right? I'm, of course, a little bit biased. I've been working it for 7 years. It's a great platform. I've seen thousands of people hire through it. What you put into it is what you will get out of it. So with an investment of time and with an investment of funds to be able to create that return, you will get things out of it, right? There's been, let alone too many Success Spotlight guests who will tell you that, but then in addition to that too as well, thousands of business owners that have been using it year over year. So again, not to pat ourselves on the back, but if you're sensing any sort of doubt or any hesitancy in your recruiting, reach out to us and we can help you. And that's what we're here for. So use this as that resource. But Keith, back to you again. Talked about a lot of really good stuff here, and it's been a unique session. And I think that you're the perfect person to be able to speak on a lot of these things. Again, with the velocity of recruiting that you do, I still can't believe that 130 people in the last 3 days. It's excellent.
It's going up.
It's about 4.5 people a day that Keith's hiring, something like that, which is fantastic. And during that, he's choosing to spend some of this time with us. So. What is the I guess of all the things that we talked about, or maybe that we haven't gotten to yet, what's one thing that you would say if someone's not doing it today, they need to start doing it as a part of their recruiting?
Well, yeah, I mean, recruiting's number one, but we hit on that for an hour. So instead, what I would probably tell you is, if you're looking to build an agency, you got to build it through people. You got to find the people. You got to manage the people. Like any good business that you're building is gonna just be systems and people. So setting them up for success, having the right systems behind them, and then also having the great people to run those systems in a repetitive pattern. And I'll just say it'll not only elevate your business, but if you're doing it right, you're elevating and changing the lives. I'd say don't lose sight of that, because you'll change so many people from the time you hire them to the time, heck, maybe just a couple years, maybe a few years. Um, you have the power to really change somebody's life from the time you meet them to the time you bring them on. And heck, whether it's an agency owner, district manager, heck, I've had some people go to the security side. You can do any number of things. You're only limited to what you think you're limited to.
That is the most bittersweet part of it, right? To see people, I guess, move their way up or move on something else that is good for them. But something I just thought of is be a fun person to work for and find fun people to work with. A lot of times, if you hit those two objectives, then a lot of things will go right, which is terrific. Well, Keith, again, thank you for joining us. I make comments about obviously you stepping aside and giving us time, but it really is appreciated because I do truly know how busy you are, and I feel like every time I do have a chance to sit down with you for this duration of time, I always leave learning a ton of new stuff too. So I'm sure the same is true for our audience. So thank you again for spending time. I know that you always open your door to helping us at IdealTraits and me specifically. So again, it always is a pleasure getting a chance to sit down with you, and I thank you again.
I appreciate it, and appreciate everybody that stuck around 60 minutes to listen to me ramble.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, have a great rest of your day, everybody. We'll see you back in June. Summer is upon us. Now is as good a time as ever for you to find your next best employee. So feel free to reach out to us if you need some help taking action on a lot of the things that we talked about. And again, we'll see you back in June for our next edition of Success Spotlight. Have a good Wednesday, everybody. We'll see you.